Welcome to episode 2 of the Can You Geek podcast. My name is Steve, and this is Errane.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about upcoming trilogy for Star Wars, but the rumor about how they're going to handle it. So I'm going to let Errane take the lead because he knows more about the history and where everything is coming from, and I will fill in as needed. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, there's some rumor mill. Now, it's not like official or anything, but there's a big time rumor mill, and specifically from Star Wars News Net. They've heard that the Star Wars trilogy so there's a couple in the works, but specifically David Benioff or Benoit or something like that.
Benioff.
D.B. Weiss.
It's Benioff, yeah.
Benioff. Okay, cool. So as many people I'm sure know, the directors of Game of Thrones, which is not a popular show whatsoever. There's nobody who loves that show. No, not at all. No. So they've been trusted by Disney, and it is official they are getting some Star Wars love, so they get to play in the Star Wars universe. And with, sadly, the Game of Thrones ending in April of this year, the sad, sad time that I get to watch it go away, I'm going to be depressed. But in the wake of that, we get to see them mess in Star Wars. And I know that a lot of people have been disappointed with different Star Wars movies, and I definitely disagree with some people's reactions to some of them. But that is nor here nor there, nor are we looking for a debate on previous movies that have come out. Because I share an unpopular. I do.
I have the most unpopular opinion when it comes to the Star Wars universe. So I love them. I watched every movie, but I have a very, very unpopular opinion when it comes to Star Wars movies. So we can get into that in another episode.
I agree. That would be lovely. I'd love to talk about it, especially after I do a fresh viewing. We can do some fresh viewing.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Some of the stuff that's disputed a little bit, like Last Jedi, I love that movie. And from this point forward, people will stop listening to me because of that statement.
I would probably alienate every listener we have. So, yeah, let's save that one for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So they're saying they're about 95% confident that it's accurate that they are going to play specifically in my favorite time period of Star Wars, which is in the Old Republic. Now, we talked about it a little bit on the Knights of the Old Republic, which was an Xbox game that I, Steve, put life into. I spent more hours on that game than any other. I wasn't a big fan of Halo other than playing like with my friends at their house. You remember when you had to take your Xboxes to your buddies and you all got on one TV and they got on the other. That was the only time that I liked Halo, was like multiplayer. That wasn't really a game for me, but Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was my favorite game of all time. It was great. I loved playing it. I enjoyed rocking the character and the story, and HK-47 is probably one of my favorite characters ever made. Just calling me a meatbag all the time was fantastic. I loved it. I loved everything about it. Oh my God, Bastilla, I turned her into an evil bitch. It was great. I loved it. So it's a fantastic series. I actually never played the second one. I heard it was by a different developer. I'm not sure how true that is. But I did, and we did just talk about there was an online game.
Yes,
so
I played more of the online game than the original. I did play the original, not nearly as much as you. I don't totally remember the original, but I know the time frame.
It's wonderful. It's such a good game. It's such a good game. It was just, oh God, I loved every second of that. Was just super fun. It was a great combat system, and it was early, just good gaming process. But the online version wasn't taken in so well, so I blame EA
initially
more than anything.
It's actually got a really big cult following still. There's custom servers still being hosted. It's still got a rather large following, which is impressive. I actually recently just saw a new game on Kickstarter to host a new private custom load of the server.
That's interesting. So here's what happened. We got a group of friends, and we moved over from playing World of Warcraft. And we came over to Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic Online. I don't remember what exactly was the name of the game officially. The Old Republic?
I think it was just the Old Republic,
The Old Republic. Yeah, it wasn't Knights of the Old Republic, because Coach, as it's said in brevity, was the original. But yeah, the Old Republic. I think it's just the Old Republic. What happened there, as a person who played in the beta and played since launch, what happened is we had a group of friends. We had a lot of fun with the game. The game was absolutely just an amazing embodiment of playing in that universe and playing in the Star Wars world. And we had a lot of fun with it for that reason. But they, as EA does, they released it earlier than they should have, and it was such a lack of content, and the PvP was awful. It was bad. Like, there were some things that were fun, but for the most part, terrible. It was unplayable, and a lot of people didn't want to stick to it because they had other games that had better, like, PvP formats, and the game itself just was super underdeveloped. So it's funny you mentioned the cult following, because I've had a buddy of ours, that we game with, who still plays to this day, because the story just started getting so good, and they started following through with some of those promises that it was 2 years too late, basically, before they started giving that content. I never went back. And I'm sad I never went back because I really enjoyed it. I did play a Star Wars Galaxy Heroes phone game for a while. Well, what's great about that is that started introducing characters from KOTOR. Like, HK-47 was one of the first characters in the game, and that was a big deal for me, because Disney had taken over LucasArts and Lucasfilms, and they'd taken over, and I was worried that because a lot of the upsettedness came from what canon would exist and not exist, and basically they kiboshed a lot of amazingly written books that people were in love with, characters that they loved. Of course, they brought some back, like Admiral Thrawn came back in the Rebel series, which is an incredible... The cartoon series, the Clone Wars and the Rebel series, are some of the most incredible Star Wars stories you can watch. So if you haven't seen them, they're worth every second of your time. Ahsoka Tano is one of my favorite characters in the world, and she is just so much depth. They did Anakin right in Clone Wars. It's an incredible story. It's amazing. But what the Galaxy Heroes game did is it started bringing HK-47, Darth Revan, and some other characters that I guess were in some of the other games that I'm not as familiar with. But a lot of these characters that made Old Republic canon, based on being in the game and later approved by Disney and said to be canon. Originally, Disney said things about not messing with the Old Republic. Originally, they weren't going to touch it. They were going to kind of let the Old Republic be.
Yeah, it was going to be a standalone universe.
Exactly, because they were busy with the Skywalker timeline and everything that's happened around the original trilogy and that time basis, right? Even Rebels and Clone Wars is all taking around the Skywalker life, that timeline. And now that they're branching off into different trilogies, it's interesting to see that the Game of Thrones directors get to go in the way of the Old Republic, because they do such amazing fight scenes, incredible fight scenes. The Battle of the Bastards, for instance, this amazing immersive experience where, right? Like, I couldn't breathe watching it because it was so amazing. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but just I couldn't breathe watching parts of that episode. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, totally. You expect certain people that they're about to die with the way that it's shot and edited together, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, no.
It's an incredible, way, and the way the character development that they've done, and I get that they have a lot of material in the Lord of the Rings. Wow. So in the Game of Thrones, if you will call it mythology, right? Everything they could take from that, and they kind of went on their own path with it, which is where, because the books aren't finished, right? So and I haven't read the books, I've only watched the show. So the show's like my life. Everything, my wife and I, we just binged all of the previous seasons. We own all 7 seasons on Blu-ray. I know, we love Blu-ray. We don't like the digital age of having movies online. We get made fun of about it all the time, but yes, we still buy Blu-ray. So with that, we just watched them, and so I'm interested to see what these two directors do. So because you know about the Old Republic and you know what these directors have done in Game of Thrones, I know you're very, very invested in Game of Thrones like I am. What do you feel like their strong points could be playing in the Old Republic?
So the one thing I like is the fact that it is a very open canon for them. It's not like they need to follow a very scripted Skywalker timeline. If they put it far enough in advance, earlier in time, like the formation of the Jedis, that whole era and then go from there, or even a little bit like they're already established, the amount of stories they can do, if they were given pure free reign, which I'm hoping they are, they can just have fun and make incredible stories like they do with Game of Thrones.
Kind of a segue into that, because I love what you're saying. Free reign, right? There's certain things they're able to do in the Game of Thrones trilogy, and I get that, George R.R. Martin, his writings are sexual, and there's a lot of ecstasy involved in that, so you get a lot of that nudity and problems that would be problematic for Disney type production, right? And, we talked about Deadpool and what's going to happen with that, and it isn't broke, don't fix it. Maintain that R rating. So do you think that we'll even have a chance of seeing an R-rated Star Wars movie? And I don't mean because of the sexual stuff, because that's not really something they have to play into, but I mean for violence.
I could see it in this universe. They could separate out this universe enough that it could be an R-rated universe and not have to touch the PG Skywalker universe.
Now, do you think that's dangerous for Disney to go that route? Do you think that because they would make it an R rating, that would lose so many viewers that they're not getting the result they're looking for, getting these two directors on? Because free reign, if they really want the battle scenes that they've made amazingly popular in Game of Thrones, it's a lot of blood, it's a lot of guts, and lightsabers, they don't give a fuck. Lightsabers just right? Lightsabers don't give a fuck. You're going to see shots deflected and, shot back at people and things blowing up and shit, and we could see explosions in PG-13, but it's the minute you start getting a lot of grotesque...
Yeah, limb severing, decapitations. Without going back to the other movies, the Skywalker series, and getting in-depth into that, because that easily is going to be a whole other episode, if not multiple episodes of our podcast. I think that they can, because of how poorly the last few movies have been
received.
Yeah.
Bad.
Like, really bad. Like, hating on The Last Jedi. Again, I'm with you. I enjoyed it. I had fun watching it. My kids loved it. Like, it, to me, was not a bad movie. There's issues with it, of course. With all movies, I can find problems with them. But, in general, it was a pretty decent movie. Was it the worst Star Wars movie? Not even close. But with the poor reception that everything has been getting, and who knows what this final movie is going to have its reception be like, rebooting everything and going, you know what, forget it, go R-rated, go violent, show the gruesome dark world that could be in Star Wars, I think people would love it.
I agree with you. I think that it would get when you think about Star Wars, though, it's such a vast audience, especially since Disney has done Rebels, and they brought in accepted Clone Wars for everything that it is, and that's a very, very younger audience oriented. Not that you get purely young stuff as an adult. I very much enjoyed what they told, and like I said, there's some of the better stories that they've told. And if you watch Clone Wars, there's a lot of death. They kill clones in that storyline more than I can. It's ridiculous how many clones die.
The few episodes I've watched, yeah, there was a lot of violence.
They just kill them. They kill them like they don't mean anything, like they're not important in their human lives. But I don't think they'll go R-rated. I think they are going to restrict these guys to a PG-13 rating. I think that's going to happen. But I would be interested to see what you're talking about. Complete free reign to tell in kind of an epic love story and have some of that sex sells, behind the Disney name. Because according to the rumors, they're looking to get the Game of Thrones style audience. I know that doesn't necessarily mean you need nudity and grotesque violence like you get in Game of Thrones.
No, but you need a good, deep story with good character development and epic fight scenes.
Which they can. I think they could pull it off without having everything, but I think it's important to let them just kind of go with it, go with their flow and see what they can get away with. And I think that because they have another trilogy in the works that doesn't involve the Skywalker timeline as well, I think it's with the Jurassic Park director. I can't be sure. I don't remember who it is. There's a director they've already trusted to do another trilogy, and I can't remember who it is, and I don't have that information on site. But I think that they let Weiss and Benioff do their own thing, give them that opportunity to see, kind of tamper. I think that you're right. I think the Old Republic is the place to do it. I think that's the place where kind of everything's not so nice, right? We haven't like produced the Galactic Empire, like the foundation of because Knights of the Old Republic takes place like 4,000 years before the foundation of the Galactic Empire, and then the Old Republic, the Star Wars: The Old Republic MMORPG that we played.
Yep.
That's like 300 years after the Knights of the Old Republic. So you're still, 3,000 plus years behind the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about that game was the fact that I was able to be a Dark Jedi.
That was important.
It was super important. Like, I could still be, in general, I was a good person, but I did horrible things.
And you could have fun with that, playing that chaos. And I think that it opens up, like you said, the canon isn't really set. I'm sure there's some things that have been accepted. I haven't really followed it since, honestly. Like, as soon as I heard this, I got super, super excited. It makes me want to go play KOTOR again, and I don't play one-player games anymore, but I would play KOTOR again. I'd play that just as fast as I play Final Fantasy VII again.
If I could get it on my One X, I would. And because I've been wanting, it's been on the list of I want to play this to really play it through.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do with it. I'm excited to see what possibilities come from this. I'm excited to see if they'll play with any of the old characters, and that's something else I should say, is that it's also that it is a few hundred years back. So I don't think they're going Old Republic like 4,000 years back in time. So I don't think that we'll see the characters that we've seen in Republic or Knights of the Old Republic. And I also definitely know we won't see the characters we're seeing currently in the Skywalker saga era, right? So they, like you said, they kind of almost get to play in this really beautiful place. And if you look at movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I understand Guardians of the Galaxy aren't invented. I understand that they come from a story, but it was a storyline that was meant for kids who were into the space comics, the cosmic universe of Marvel. And I personally, as a kid, I didn't fucking read those books. I don't know shit about that story. I had to look all that shit up on Wikipedia when Guardians of the Galaxy came out. But you better be damn sure that Gunn made those characters some of the most popular and beloved characters in the Marvel Universe. So I think that goes in the same pot here. And I think that what's cool is you could take a character like HK-47, which I love, because he's a droid, right?
Yep.
You could have his rusty, dusty old ass show up somehow. Like something cool like that, like a throwback to acknowledge the people who love the characters that they want occur in the Old Republic stuff. Like something like a droid is really easy to do, and not still deal with the characters of the future. And where you, like you're saying, through Errane of just really creating these amazing star people. And I really think something important, something that I think that they could do very well, is if you look at Game of Thrones, a lot of those actors and actresses were nobodies when they brought them.
Absolutely nobodies. There's a few that had names behind them from doing smaller roles, but when Game of Thrones started, people that were pretty much ready to just go be a waiter. They were ready to give up acting. They were just, this is it, I'm done.
And I want to see that. I also want to see Arya Stark become a Jedi or Sith, even a little Sith. Really, I'd love her as a little Sith. Oh my God! Everything about the idea of that. If they could bring some of the Game of Thrones characters into the Star Wars universe, I'd lose my shit. It'd be like all over again.
She would be the best Dark Jedi ever. Because it's exactly what her character is in Game of Thrones right now. She's
right. So I guess it's a little boring, but
it is
for us.
I would go nuts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I would lose my shit, dude. It'd be great to see it. Honestly, there's so many great things they could do with that storyline and playing with it. I would love to see how they deal with that time period, because I don't remember. I believe it's Darth Bane who creates the rule of two. I'm pretty sure it's Darth Bane who does that. I don't want to feel like I'm wrong there, but I could be. But if it is Darth Bane, I don't know what his era was. So about 1,000 years before Clone Wars. So if they're only a few hundred years, then it is Darth Bane. So I'm not wrong. I won't lie, I had to look it up just to make sure
I was looking it up at the same time. I was like,
I appreciate that. Yeah, we have the internet. We should use it, right?
Yeah.
We're winging this shit. I'm just bringing stuff up here. But he was the one who brought up the rule of two, and that's important, and I think that is actually officially canon because it was brought up in Clone Wars. But his story apparently is about 1,000 years before the Clone Wars. So I think it's important that they play with the Darth Bane. Like I could be behind that. I could be behind them going through that story arc and playing around with that, or I'd more love the idea of them going before the Rule of Two, where you get many Sith and get to see that, because every Star Wars movie we've seen, every Star Wars show, the Rule of Two has been there. We've seen a few more Sith, obviously, like come out of the woodworks with like Darth Maul and what happened with him and his. If you ever watch Clone Wars, you get to see kind of what happens with his character and what he does when he gets his own apprentice. But the point is that the Rule of Two still, right? The idea of that there will be a master and apprentice, and that's the way it always will be. It's not that we don't love that about Star Wars. It's that it would be really fun to see an army of Sith, to see Sith being trained in masses by the Darth Bane piece. And maybe that's how they end their trilogy. Maybe we end with the moment when Darth Bane creates the Rule of Two. I could be down with that. I could be cool with that moment and what happens in it. But I don't want to see... I don't think I want to see the Rule of Two in effect already.
Yeah, totally. As you were speaking, thought jumps into my brain. What if they did it? The entire trilogy was on the formation of the Sith and how they separated from the Jedi. So then at the very end of it, yeah, exactly like you said, the last part of the Sith is the Rule of Two, and then we know that in X amount of years, this is how everything tied into the other trilogies, the Skywalker timeline. But this was separate. But this is how the Sith came to be, because my understanding is the Sith weren't always there. It was like the Jedi formed, and then the Sith were an offshoot because people didn't agree with the teachings eventually.
You know what? I don't. The problem with what do I want to say to that? The problem with that is what is it that what's said about it from Disney's perspective, because according to Wikipedia, the Sith, also referred to as the Sith Order, were an ancient Force wielders devoted to the dark side of the Force. So, and that's how I've always really understand it, but they emerged as a divergent faction of the Jedi Order. So you're right, yeah. So as long as that is what Disney still sticks to, I don't know if Wikipedia actually still has all the current facts based on Disney's canon or not, but I do know that, yeah, so that them being an offshoot of the Jedi as far as their studies of the dark side, right? And that's what's important there, is that they focus in and hone in on that piece of it. But I agree. I would love to see, and we don't have to see that creation story of where the Sith are and where they come from, but like you're saying, we can see the development within this trilogy taking place in the Old Republic, see Darth Bane's rise to rule, and then his creation of the Rule of Two. Would be, I think, a cool story. And even if they don't play in that, I would rather see a movie that takes place before the Rule of Two, is what I'm saying. I just definitely. I want to see a mass amount of red lightsabers just going off and killing me. I just want to see it so bad. I love villains, I'm a fan of villains. I love stories of villains. I want to see that, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited about it. I've loved Star Wars since I was a kid. Empire is and always will be my favorite movie, just from nostalgic value, and I mean it opens up. Oh my God, everything about Empire is great. But I don't, and I'm not disagreeing with it there. I think a lot of people agree that Empire is the best. Yeah. But that all aside, I'm excited. I'm glad that we got to look into this. I'm glad about the possibilities. I'm excited to see that. I'm sad to see Game of Thrones go. I'm excited to see that these two guys who have been so talented in that universe, playing in that world, get to go on to one of my most beloved, stories when it comes to Star Wars, and getting to see that form under their ideas, their thought process. So I'm excited to see it. I'm ready for it.
It's hopefully an amazing transition, because they're going from one of my favorite TV series ever to one of my favorite movie franchises. Like, I love Star Wars, which is where...
And what better choice?
Exactly. Like, you're going from... you're going from... Yes, it's apples to oranges, but it's...
But it's still that, like, knightly code, like that era of time, just with laser swords,
Yeah, exactly.
Laser swords in space, right? We're not restricted to the Seven Kingdoms. We get to see... Right? The biggest hurdle is not water, you know?
Just because I'm curious, did the Jedis always have lightsabers, or was that after their formation?
My understanding is that they always have. I could be wrong on that. I think that because the kyber crystals, I don't actually know if they're still called kyber crystals. Kyber crystals still seems to be the I know they talked about it, but their connection with that and the Force and how it kind of calls to them, I don't know if those have ever been separated. I think that because they're tapped into the Force, something about the kyber crystals and forming their lightsaber, that all is connection. That should be something we talk about as fan theories. That would be something amazing to talk about, that Banks being this like overbearing, like amazingly powerful Sith Lord. I would love to discuss that sometime. Yeah. But without looking it up, I'm pretty sure kyber crystals is still the word they use to describe what powers the lightsaber. And if I'm not mistaken, their connection to the kyber crystals and how that calls out to them as Jedi or Sith all comes from their tap into the Force. Like it's all one thing. And I could be way wrong, and somebody could tell me and correct me via Twitter or something. Yeah, and that's fine. I don't mind being wrong. I like learning stuff, and I love to look stuff up, and I think that's one brilliant thing about being geeks is that you get your pompous pricks who think they know everything. Well, they might know everything, and that's fine, but you get nice people who just want to share that information and geeking out and talking about that. And we can go into some geek culture conversations.
Oh, for sure.
Talk about some articles that Patton Oswalt's written and some interviews that Kevin Smith has done on geek culture, and I would love to discuss that with you sometime.
100%.
To talk about it. But yeah, I could be wrong. I think that's what the connection is with that and war lightsabers. So I think lightsabers have always been like the Jedi Knight's weapon. Like that's their weapon of choice. And I think it's all connected within them, so where that comes from. So I think Ilum is a place. I'm pretty sure where a temple is that gets destroyed later.
Yes, that is my understanding. It sounds right.
Yeah, and I should rewatch Clone Wars again. They talk about all this stuff.
I need to watch Clone. I've watched episodes. My son was really into it, and I watched episodes with him. But I never had the time to sit down and watch it from beginning to end. So it is.
Season 1's hard.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list. It is definitely on the to-do list. And I'm going to have to, with us doing these shows more, and with Star Wars going to be more than likely a big discussion between us. I need to get more in-depth into the stuff I haven't seen yet.
Well, any reason for me to rewatch Clone Wars and Rebels, I will tell you that hands down Anakin's been more properly represented than in Clone Wars. His relation with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and that trio of people, I've never rooted for heroes so much. Like I love. Like I said, I'm excited to see now into Knights just of the Republic, the old Republic, and the Jedi Order and the Sith, and seeing how that goes. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see how they do a great job. Like I said, I don't think we'll see an R rating from them, but if they do, it would shock the shit out of me.
It would 100% shock me as well.
Right. But I love this. I love the idea of it, and I'm sure once we get more confirmation, we'll bring it up again.
Yeah.
And it'll be something to definitely dive into, be a little better prepared to answer some of those questions that you're asking me. So
definitely, and I'll be more prepared to answer those questions as well. So, all right, on that, we should call it an end of the show. Thank you guys for listening. That was episode 2, Star Wars Game of Thrones trilogy rumors and what we'd like to see. Thank you again for listening. My name is Steve, and this is Errane.
What up, and goodbye. See you next time.
Today's music is used by permission from the artist Broke for Free. The song is called Something Elated. You can find it on freemusicarchive.org under the user Broke for Free.